This is Rob Stone from Fox Sports.
This is Jochen Graf.
Hi, I'm Neil Collins.
You are listening to the Unused Substitutes.
The Unused Substitutes.
And you're listening to the Unused Substitutes.
Get off the bench!
Hey there, Little Red Riding Hood! I got a problem and it's complicated. Going through changes and I just can't ignore the signs. Hear them now, it's so loud it hurts. Hear me growl, hear me howl when the full moon is out.
Off the row, ball's gonna bounce down, it's free in the box. Bicycle kick! Goal! Rowdies! What a play! What a shot! And it's 1-0 Rowdies!
Hey, good evening, everybody. It's Wednesday night. You're listening to another episode of the Unused Substitutes live on Radio St. Pete, part of the Beautiful Game Network, and presented by Roughneck Scarves. My name is Matt, and on the other end of the internet is a guy who doesn't do makeup, but if he did, he'd be doing his smoky eye tonight. Steven, how you doing?
Ready to light some smoke.
I detect a theme so far.
I mean, I'm just saying, like, this is insane. This whole thing is insane. Like, just, and that's the thing, like, it's almost so perplexing. It's hard to be mad. You're just dumbfounded going, this is like, it's just stupid. Like, what the heck is going on over there?
All right. So if you have no idea what we're talking about, hang in there. We'll get to it later. We're going to do the reality show thing when we're like, we'll tell you next after the break. We're going to make you sit through some preseason talk and some other stuff as well, but we will get to it. I honestly, I got home at about 6 o'clock tonight, 6:30, and then started checking online. That's when I literally just found out about this an hour and a half ago. I got a DM earlier in the day that mentioned something, but I didn't think about it for the rest of the day, and then got home and was like, oh, well, that's interesting. But first, we do have some preseason results to talk about. I can't decide, did us, sort of talking about it last week end up jinxing it, or us not discussing it in full end up jinxing it? Either way, the Rowdies went to the Central Florida Litter Box Stadium and played a little preseason footy against the City Kitties from formerly of Austin. Started out with the lead. It was going on. First of all, there was no stream, and it was closed door. It was going on during the show last week, so we're relying totally on tweets to tell us this. Rowdies led 1-0 for quite a while. Even started putting in some substitutes, putting in some of the starting lineup as substitutes to. Now they all came in at the 60th minute, so I think that was part of the plan, the preseason line changes we've seen. But it was not to be, and the boys in green and gold fell 2-1 in Orlando. I hate even just saying that. A day before I arrived in town and left my mark. Steven, we saw the video of the goal at least. It was a very nice goal. We can at least wallow in that for a little while, but overall thoughts on the game from what we saw afterwards after avoiding trying to talk about it last week?
Highly encouraged. And I know that's going to sound weird. But I think the fact is when we look at very specifically how that game transformed, right? We played a team with, again, we mentioned it last week, 8 of the potential 11 starters started the game for Orlando. We, on the other hand, were missing several of our key leftover pieces from a year ago. And we even started our famed trialist that has been around for a couple of games now. Don't know if that's necessarily a signing potential or if it already is a sign, just not announcing the name yet. But either way, to go 0-0 into halftime is encouraging. I can't at all complain about that result. I think that's great. I think it's fantastic that this motley crew of players that we had starting that game turned in a result of getting a shutout in the first half. I thought that was fantastic. And then to come out of the break, catch them on their heels, because I'm going to be honest, Murphy's goal was sick, but that happens because their defender was just lazy. Oh my gosh. Like when you're going to just drag yourself into a challenge the way he did, yeah, you're come on, you're going to get burnt. And Murphy burned him, and it was fantastic. But that said, I think, honestly, if we had tried to win that game, I think we win that game. And I think that's the important thing, too, when you look at, comments that we've seen since, which we'll get into a little bit here. We specifically did not go into that game looking to get a quote-unquote result. It would have been cool, but that was clearly not Neil's prerogative. And you see that later in the game, we're substituting like 17 and 18-year-old kids into a game that has Nani in it. I mean, Nani against like a 17-year-old Tampa Bay kid. What? Like, first of all, that's awesome. I love the fact that we're getting these guys in the games where I'm thrilled beyond measure that our academy kids are featuring minutes, as many as they've had with the first team. I think it's great. But I honestly believe we could have beaten Orlando if we wanted to. If that was the goal, if that was what Neil wanted to do, I think seeing that 0-0 scoreline at halftime, I think we could have actually played to win if we had wanted to.
And it's one of the ways you go at preseason games. And there's situations where you've got young players on the roster, you've got a bunch of new players you've brought in, and getting a result is kind of an important thing to develop that confidence, to develop that chemistry. We've got a team with a pretty solid veteran presence, players who have been here. And then we've brought in players who have been around the league. So results are nice. To me, it's never the primary goal of preseason. It's about practicing. It's about getting in shape. It's about doing some of these things. Now, as we get closer to the season kickoff, then seeing how that works out is becomes a little bit more important. But yeah, I mean, I'm looking at the roster. Well, let me go over what the starting roster was, and then when the changes came, and try and figure out a little bit about what the plan was for last Wednesday. Evan Lower started in goal, played the whole game. Might be Evan and Aaron Guillen are the only players who played the full 90 minutes. Defensive lineup in the back again was Luis Lomas. Do we know, is it Luis or is it Louis? Do we know?
I haven't asked. I don't know.
Someone will tell us shortly, I'm sure, if they're listening.
Yeah.
Mr. Lomas, we'll go with now. Mr. Lomas, Forrest Lasso, and Aaron Guillen were your defensive back three. Mustafa Dumbuya, Lewis Hilton, Dom Oduro, Kevin Mendoza, Zach Steinberger, and A. Trialist listed as your midfielders, and your forward was Kyle Murphy. Starters played the entire first half at least. We didn't have like the big everybody in at the 60th minute, despite what I said a second ago. Where there were some numerous swaps, but there were a couple swaps coming out of halftime. After halftime, you saw Tejada come on. Jan Ekra came on. Jordan Doherty came on. Leo Fernandez came on. So you're starting to work some of your typical expected starters into the lineup, giving them a half to run around in. Then in the 62nd minute, you had Lakawecki comes on for Forrest Lasso. You've got Lucky comes on for Kevin Mendoza, and you've got Guenzati comes on for Murphy. You had one more sub laid on. You mentioned it, Landon Amaris coming on for Zach Steinberger in the 87th minute. Like, this is clearly about getting some guys who may not now. Like, I think you're probably looking at your starting defense right now. Midfield, I think we've got a mix of starters and probably second string players, and then Murphy, especially with that goal, might start to play his way into more minutes. But I still think if you're picking one guy up top, the way we've played recently, I think Seb is still the guy to be up there at this point. But you wanted to get some guys some playing time, and you wanted to bring in some young guys. You gave one of the young guys a little run out. You gave a trialist another half to try and see what you have in him. This wasn't a game where they said let's go out and beat them 5-0. It was let's try a couple things, try a couple formations, try a couple pairings of players, and see what happens. If you win, you win. If you don't, you don't. It's preseason. Ideally, no one gets hurt. May or may not be the case for the game that happened on the weekend. We'll see in just a little bit. Anything else we need to mention from that game? I mean, congrats to Kyle Murphy for the goal. It looks sweet, but yeah, it's a giant defensive breakdown. But it's nice to see, you've got guys who can recognize that and know what to do when you're suddenly presented with a nice situation. Because it's not going to happen all the time. So if you're ready for it, take advantage of it. We were living very happy for about 25 minutes, because he had the one goal early on in the second half that was whistled offside, and then a few minutes later scored this one. Okay. Oh, well. All I'll say is an hour later, Purple Twitter is still going on and on about the game. Rowdies Twitter is trying to recommend restaurants to Pablo Mar in St. Pete. I think we see who's more focused on the result of that game.
Yeah, pretty much. It was kind of funny. We were all chuckling because there's no doubt about it. Like, again, it's come on, it's Orlando. They're a bunch of jokers over there. We all know that.
Bunch of silly little guys. All right, second game, preseason game since we've last talked, was the first game of the Suncoast Invitational, second game of the opening doubleheader. First game saw Inter Miami fall in their first public open door match to Philadelphia Union. Although their new signing, Rodolfo Pizarro, who it looks like we're going to probably get a chance to see this weekend, had a nice day for him. It was his birthday, too. So I was reading an article about the game. He had flown in like 2 days before, had one training session with the team, no idea what the names of his teammates were, plays on his birthday, gets a goal, and just kind of looked like he didn't take a lot of effort to get to that point. Maybe that's from from being in the state of where he was coming into the season. MLS it's preseason, but Liga MX is well into their season right now. So we'll see what happens with him on Saturday night. But we had Rowdies Montreal. You were there. How was it to be back at Al Lang for the first time in a while?
I was there, and I was trying to drum, and it was awful, and it was terrible, and the only reason why I was drumming is that I'm probably the only person outside of Aaron that's done it at multiple games, not because I have training in it of any kind of schooling nature, not because I have any real detailed sense of rhythm. It's just that I've been to enough games that I kind of sort of know the beat, sort of can keep in time and stuff. But it was awful. It was terrible. That said, so I apologize to everybody listening on the show right now. I'm sorry that I ruined your atmospheric nature of the games, but, you know, desperate times call for desperate measures, but it's preseason, so I'm not sure if anybody cares.
It's not the
That
worst thing
being
that's
said-
happened to the atmosphere at a Rowdies game this week. Let's just say that.
This is true.
Also,
This
I know for a
is-
fact you are not the worst drummer who watches soccer in St. Pete. I know for a fact. We're not going to start putting anyone but Steven stickers on the drum.
Exactly. Anyway, the game itself was fun, and it was, oh, God, I loved walking in that building. Oh, it felt so good actually seeing some soccer with friends and family and, you know, random other people. No, it was great. I loved it. And, you know, getting it as close as we are to seeing some of these star players with Major League Soccer. Oh, God, it felt good. It felt good being there again. And getting into the actual game itself, Rowdies looked good against Montreal. Now, I don't know how much of that's Montreal, you know, poo-pooing around against a lower division team. I don't know necessarily, but man, we looked solid against them. Now, granted, let's be fair. Montreal has also kind of been garbage for a number of years in Major League Soccer. They've only had a handful of years where they've actually been a relatively decent playoff side at that division. So, yeah, I mean, it's not like we're beating Atlanta or, you know, LAFC or anything like that when you're beating a Montreal team 2-1, which really should have been 2-0. But I'll save that for later. I thought so. The way that we lined up, we had Evan Lauro played all 90 minutes. Again, I think at this point, when you look at the fact that we've seen him 2 games in a row play all 90 against MLS opposition, pretty sure you could just pencil him in as the starter. I think that's pretty obvious at this point that is going to happen. The big thing for me is seeing the 3 backs play the whole 90 minutes against Montreal. Mm-hmm. You have Lomas, Lasso, and Guillen. Guillen, once again, has played a full 90 minutes. I think right now I think it's pretty obvious. At this point, that's your back 3. I think it's fair to say that that's going to end up being a back 3. Lakawecki will be a backup player. I think when you look at it, probably Scarlett is a backup player without question. Dumboya can play back there if needed, but he's certainly not going to be a starting player back there. I think it's fairly obvious you have your back 3. And they looked great. Because I can't think of a single time rewatching that game where it looked like they were going to get beat or that they were overwhelmed by any kind of effort from Montreal's attackers. I thought they looked solid up against that level of competition, and that was extremely encouraging. My biggest surprise, I think, this weekend was how good Mustafa Dumboya looked. My goodness, he was fantastic. Way more speed than I would have anticipated him, and was absolutely attacking Montreal players as far as when he has the ball. I loved it. That was a big, big surprise, getting a chance to see him for the first time in person. I loved it. Absolutely. He was very, very encouraging for me. Jordan Doherty, Jan Ekra played in the middle. Not too surprising with Hilton in front of them. That's pretty much how we've seen them line up. And, of course, they look just as good as last year in the case of Doherty and Ekra. Hilton, of course, has been solid so far this preseason in general. You had Leo Fernandez on the opposite end. He looks like he hasn't really lost much of a step at all. He's going to be exciting this year. Up top is the important thing because we started with Gonzatti and Tejada. And it's, first of all, you can see Tejada's increase in pace. So that was something I noticed a little bit rewatching the game and seeing it in person. He looked a little quicker. I don't know if that's just because now that he's got a full season professionally under his belt, maybe that's going to help his stamina. Maybe that helped his speed and helped his muscle growth, considering he's still so young. He's still growing physically. He looked a little quicker, and I thought that was huge considering the type of battle that we have up front for who's going to start alongside Gonzalez. Because I think at this point, it's obvious Gonzalez is going to be one of the two starters up front. It's only a question of who's going to be starting regularly beside him, Murphy, Tejada, or M. Kasana. I'm leaning so far with Murphy, but at the same time, Tejada surprised me with how quick he looked. So I think that's still very much up in the air. And we'll see. I thought the game was good. Again, Montreal looked like crap, but that's because it's Montreal, and they've been crap for a long time. The only reason why they're in Champions League is because they're in Canada. I think right now, if you take the starting lineup that we had against Montreal and started playing USL soccer right now, I think undoubtedly we're a top 5 team. I think we're that good that you can already send us in that level. I don't know much of anything that you would do to change this up. I mean, I thought that starting 11 looked solid to me. I think that's my biggest takeaway, is that starting 11 looked really good. And I don't think when you look at this, there's a whole lot you can do to make it better, which is funny because it ties in a little bit with our Neil Collins interview that we posted as well, because he kind of roughly says about the same thing. So it's interesting that we'll have that like a bit of a segue there as far as the conversation goes.
So looking at the lineups, because again, I was in Central Florida, parts I don't like to speak about. So I didn't get the chance to watch it, and it wasn't streamed at all. Like the
Yes, it was streamed. What are you talking about? It's on YouTube right now. You could watch it. Did you not know that?
Someone asked the team if they were streaming it, and the team said no.
Game got delayed by a half an hour because they set one up. It actually did get live streamed, and it's sitting on YouTube right now. You can watch the entire game from beginning to end.
Ooh, I will go dig it up. And I did not know about that at all. Saturday night, I was watching 500 kids with batons marching through Magic Kingdom. It was
Hey, you listen here. That's worth it. That's worth it. It's okay. It's still preseason. I will forgive you for all of this. It's okay. This is good.
I have some scorching hot Disney takes coming out of this weekend. I'll save that for a different podcast. I'll start a different.
Oh, Shadow podcast. Here he is. Matt's side gig is Shadow Disney podcast.
It's my burner pod. Oh, there's lots of Disney shade I have. So the kind of like 60th minute, we made a couple changes coming out of halftime in Orlando. Lucky came on, I think was the only change coming out of halftime for Tejada. And then you had several changes in the 77th. Likaweki comes on, Kyle Murphy comes on, and Trialist comes on. So now that we've seen Trialist, do we have any clue who Trialist is? Is this the same Trialist? I suspect it is, but I don't know.
The man with big feet.
You're being almost as subtle as at Rowdies Game Day is. So we have visual confirmation then.
It seems like it. Yeah,
okay.
I thought it looked a lot like him, but then again, I was on a drum and focusing on trying to not sound like a complete and utter moron the entire game. So I wish I could have been watching more, but Aaron had other responsibilities, so I couldn't watch the game as much as I may have wanted to.
Kids these days. So Steinberger comes on 58th minute. Mendoza comes on 86th minute. But Oduro, Ekra comes off in the 58th minute for Steinberger. And from what I saw from tweets, there was a possible injury. What situation? What can you explain what happened?
Yeah, it's funny because again, like when rewatching the game, because I couldn't see it very well during the game itself because I was on the drum, but on the replay, it looked like he got hurt on an arm. I mean, it looked like some sort of injury to his arm. Good news is that it's soccer, so it's almost like it doesn't matter a whole lot. So it's like, oh, you hurt your arm, you broke your arm, or whatever it is, and it's just, you'll be fine. Just throw it in a convertible cast or something like that, and you'll be back in a week or two. Life is good. So it's fine.
No emergency goalkeeping duties for Jan Ekra for the time being.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, pretty much. No in practice random rotations for giggles for games for social media. Pretty much that's off the table for him, I think, for a couple weeks. But yeah, it didn't look anything serious. It didn't look like anything. It was legs, related. So I'm
right.
People pick up tweaks. Even if it is.
So Guenzati gets
even if it's more than a tweak, it's we're still 2-3 weeks out from regular season. I mean, who cares?
We're good. So Guenzati gets both goals, one on a rebound on a penalty, a missed penalty or saved penalty, I guess. And then
terribly taken penalty. A
preseason penalty.
A preseason penalty. I like it.
Then gets a second goal, almost with a third. Apparently, it looks like Lucky had a chance, but missed a tap in at the back post. Didn't quite get to the ball. And then I'm going to explain why I actually like this in a minute. Like dying moments of the game, Montreal gets a penalty, scores it, and the game finishes 2-1. Fans and people are, oh cool, we beat an MLS team, that was fun, First thing I see on Twitter is Forrest Lasso apologizing for the result. I love it.
Oh, he's amazing.
And it's not one of those
I absolutely love him. I absolutely love him already.
I've never been a fan of the you lose a game and all of a sudden you've got 12 guys on Twitter saying wasn't the result we hoped for tonight, but like he doesn't go with like the kind of cliche. He's just like this is on me. I'm pissed. Like, you can tell it's a sincere statement.
First of all, it was a garbage penalty kick to begin with. Just saying, in my opinion, I thought it was a garbage penalty kick. But for him to go ahead and go out and take the responsibility that he did when he didn't even have to, and after playing a game like the type of game that he played, which was fantastic, by the way, he is awesome. This was one of my biggest takeaways coming out from this game is the fact that Forrest Lasso is like the same size, energy, speed of like a Diakite, but without some of the weird mistakes. Like Diakite has all the intangibles and then all of a sudden would just make this like weird random decision that just, you're kind of look at him going, I'm not really sure what you're thinking. Or just in general, maybe something that was a high gamble. A low odds, high gamble type play that in a 3-back set as a center defender, you would kind of not want to have happen as a decision. Forrest is not making those decisions so far. Now, granted, we've only seen him a couple of games in a Rowdies uniform, but he's not making that. But at the same time, you're also seeing the attitude. What's one of the jokes that we had about Forrest Lasso is the fact that he's prone to getting red cards and yellow cards and that kind of stuff. And you're seeing that already in preseason because he's bossing players around. And it's great to see that.
Look, I didn't want to bring up my previous comments about Forrest. I want to have him on the show sometime and have a positive relationship. No, he's one of those guys that if he's not on your team, you can't stand him. You can't stand him. But if he is on your team, he's everybody's favorite player. And so I definitely enjoyed both parts. Wow, who's Montreal playing tonight? Are they playing Saprissa?
Yes. So Montreal, I was going to bring this up here when we had a moment.
2-0.
Montreal is at Saprissa and is beating them 2-0 in the 25th minute of the game on 4 shots with only 35% possession right now.
You know who scored
What's up?
you know who just scored for him?
Yoto.
Yeah, the guy that scored the penalty at Al Lang. So is he playing here?
I cannot believe Montreal has lost to the Rowdies 2-1. Nashville 1-0. They lost to Orlando 1-0. They lost to Philadelphia 1-0. You'd have to go back to January until you actually have a victory for them of any kind of public note. And for them to walk into Saprissa and get the kind of early lead they've have right now is just mind-boggling. That is mind-boggling. But, you know,
Good luck to
second
them.
division U.S. soccer doesn't deserve any opportunities in the CONCACAF Champions League.
Are you just letting everything get you down today?
This is what I'm here for, man.
Oh, Steven.
That's okay. We'll keep throwing Portmore United in there because I'm sure that'll help. That'll work out.
Yeah. I watched the very end of that game last night because I was I wanted to watch the start of the LAFC Leon game while I was grading papers, and I had it on mute because I was listening to some podcasts and stuff while I'm watching it. And Portmore's up 1-0 until the 85th minute, something like that.
It was later. It was 90 plus 2.
No, there was.
When Cruz Azul scores to tie it up.
That was the equalizer, and then 2 minutes later, because it went to 90 plus 6 was when it ended, and it was right at the end.
Yeah, 90 plus 5. They scored 2 goals. That's why CONCACAF Champions League is awesome, because you get these just, what is going on? It was amazing. Oh my gosh, 2 goals in stoppage time in Jamaica for a team Cruz Azul, who's had so much trouble in Mexican soccer recently. Anyways, that's a hell of a segue there because that was just being distracted and seeing a live scoring update that's just mind-boggling.
I saw that pop up and I was like, ooh.
Yeah, how do you not? How do you not kick Montreal's butt and then they turn around and are just owning Saprissa? What the heck is up with that?
So we've got coming up this weekend is the Rowdies taking on Miami. And there's only so much time you can spend previewing a team that's played one open game in their entire existence. So I'm not. The only thing I think I'm really going to say about this, what game is at 7? Is it 7 or 7:30? I think it's 7. 7 at Al Lang. There are allegedly, I know of at least one bus of Miami fans coming up from West Palm Beach. Probably some other buses as well, so this would be a good one to go to. It's not going to be a frequent fixture, I'd say. It'd probably be more of a preseason thing, occasional Open Cup. Safe to say, it's probably possible to get off be on a better foot with these guys than the other Florida team. Not that we should be going out of our way to be extra friendly to everybody, but this just seemed probably is a nice group to get along with, and they've got cute flamingos, so we like that. Even though I know it's not flamingos, it's what are they, egrets, ibises, whatever they're calling themselves. They're trash chickens. But the Rowdies are going to play Miami Saturday, and then they're going to turn around and play and go to South Georgia Tormenta on Sunday. So I'm expecting that we're going to see probably some guys who haven't played or haven't played much. I think we'll definitely see some rotation in the 2 lineups to start the game. So what I was kind of looking at and thinking about this, who haven't we seen yet? So goalkeepers, Macklin's played, right? He's played at least a half or so.
At least a half. Yep.
Loro's played a lot. McGrain hasn't played yet. I don't know if he gets a start in this one, but maybe Macklin does, and McGrain backs him up. Has McGrain played?
I thought he played a half. I thought it was maybe a UNF game or something like that.
Did he play in that? Did we sign him by then? I didn't even go and check the roster because I didn't think we'd signed him by then.
Oh, see, you're asking me about something that happened 2 weeks ago by random. I thought I saw
can check
McGrain's name on there for a half. I thought him and Macklin split the time in UNF. Either way.
Okay, that would make sense. Maybe we'll see them play against USF as well, too. We'll see.
Yeah, because Loro's first game was against Orlando in a Rowdies preseason kit, quote unquote, since we
Okay.
can't call it an official appearance yet. But yeah, like Macklin and McGrain split the time at UNF.
All right, so of the defenders, we've Nambuya's played, Guillen's played, Lakoweki's played, Lasso and Lomas. Has Scarlett played at all?
Scarlett is one of the names that we have not seen yet this preseason. I don't think I've seen his name anywhere so far.
So chance that he gets some time this weekend. Moving up to the midfield, we've seen Doherty play, we've seen Ekra play. We may or may not see him this weekend, depending on what went on with his arm. Fernandez, Lewis Hilton, Kevin Mendoza, Domodoro, Zach Steinberger. We haven't seen Malik Johnson play, have we?
No, if I'm not mistaken, I saw him walking around in shorts and a t-shirt this past weekend. So he might have picked up an injury, and that's what I'm guessing.
Okay, so that answers my next question. We're relatively sure he's not Penny the Pelican. First off, was Penny at the game?
Oh, man. No. So, funny enough, I don't think we saw either Pelican at the game this past weekend, which I thought was interesting. We were chanting for him at one point.
It's Pelican preseason too. Come on, guys. You gotta knock the rust off those feathers. So if he's injured, if he's injured, then our midfield's going to be interesting.
I'm speculating. No, I don't know. He wasn't in a boot or anything like that. It was just in shorts and a t-shirt. I mean,
But I mean, if you're not dressed for a preseason game, hopefully you are injured, because otherwise, what's the story?
Assume, but
because
I don't know.
like everybody gets it.
It's an interesting observation. He has not seen a minute yet.
Huh. Interesting.
Yeah.
And then of our forwards, Guinzotti, Lucky, Kyle, and Juan, all of them have played. So really, it'll be interesting to see if we can hear more or find out more about what's going on with Malik and also Jan, because if those two are dinged up, your available midfielders are Doherty, Fernandez, Hilton, Mendoza, Oduro, Steinberger. Like, one group's going to start on Saturday, and the other may start Sunday, and you may have one or two that split time as well.
Well, keep in mind about this
or you could bring up reserve kids. You've got trialists. You've got
darn you ruined my segue. No, that was what I was going to say. Was you got to remember this past weekend, and we're going to mention it later. USL Academy had one of their weekend, little mini soccer tournament type things. It was the USL Academy Eastern Conference cup thing. So
I love that the official name is Eastern Conference event.
Yeah, right. Well,
it sounds like something that happens at the beginning of a Godzilla movie, and then they find out there's a giant lizard running around the world again.
Hey guys, what are you doing this weekend? Oh, I'm going to the thing. USL thing. But no, I think that you would probably be safe to say that we might see Hayden Morgan, Femi Awadesu, and Landon Amiris. I think it would be safe to say that you would probably see all three of them this weekend, either in the open to the public match against Miami for a few minutes or the South Tormenta game. I think it's fair to say, or South Georgia Tormenta, either way. I think it's fair to say you'll see at least one of them, if not all three, this upcoming weekend. And that's assuming you're not going to see more people. I mean, who knows? Who knows how he's going to split the time? Because I would think it would make more sense that we probably see a heavy rotation split like we did against Montreal. I would think that would probably be what we would see here. I don't think we're doing whole 90 minutes. Here's our starting 11. Let's kind of gel the team yet. But you're also playing a really, really solid Miami team. Miami's really good.
Mm-hmm.
Really good. So maybe this is the time you start looking at and really trying to nail down that starting 11 and getting that starting 11 feel for each other into place. Maybe this is the right game to start that process. I don't know. I mean, this is why I'm not paid the big bucks.
mean, I would think so because after this, what your preseason games are Tormenta on Sunday and then USF. Like, if you want to see how your supposed best group of players, your best 11 performs, ideally you'd want to see it against probably the best opposition available.
And this is going to be it because these guys are certainly better than Montreal.
I mean,
and
they couldn't beat Philadelphia, so
I'm just saying. Well, that's because, okay, first of all, Miami lost that game because Philadelphia had a ridiculous game-winning goal. Like, that was that was fun to watch. Like, that was really cool. Sitting behind the goal, watching that curl on that. Oh, my gosh. Anyways, yeah, that was a good goal. No, Miami is a great team up and down the lineup. I mean, there are so many recognizable names on that squad right now that it's just ridiculous. So, yeah, maybe this is the right team. Maybe this is the right time for the Rowdies to trot out their starting 11, which I think outside of Jan Ekra, I think the starting 11 you had last week is probably who you put in. I think the thing I'm looking out for the most right now is who's going to start up with Ginsati. Is it going to be Murphy or is it going to be Tejada? I think that's my biggest giant question mark right now.
Mm-hmm. So you said something a few minutes ago about more people, and I'm going to use that to jump into the next part. Jake had an interview with the man himself, Neil Collins, the other day. Posted it up on the website. Some interesting stuff in there. Probably the one that jumps out the most is that they are they're in the process of completing the signing of the 22nd player to the roster. I guess maybe the man with big feet is a possibility. But looking at the roster, especially if we've got two guys potentially injured, not available. Any thoughts into? I mean, not like specifically who the person is, but looking at the roster, where do we have needs? I can see you thinking.
We're pretty solid. I mean, so many of these players can play two ways. Where. If we needed them to do something different, we can have them do something different. I mean, technically speaking, we've already got 6 defenders. I would prefer a 7th, but that's personal preference. But, I mean, at this point, I think you can never have enough midfielders because ideally they can play two ways, a lot of them, in a pinch. So I'm okay with it if that's the case. Because at this point, it's all about depth, which, of course, as we're talking about it, that was a big portion of Jake's interview with Neil was depth is hypothetically a concern. We're only at 22 players. It doesn't take a lot of injuries.
22 with this
22 with
unknown signing.
The extra player. Yeah. I mean, it doesn't take a lot of injuries and or yellow card suspensions or straight up red cards because we do have Forrest Lasso after all. It doesn't take a lot to put this team in behind the 8 ball because 3 of our 22 guys, I mean, again, I'm going to count the 22 because it's basically, we're going to have a 22nd player probably. It doesn't leave a lot of depth at all. And so and that's even if you factor in the 2 academy kids. Again, if you look at the fact that we'll probably have, if not already confirmed, Awadesu and Amiris as academy kids that can potentially get called up in a pinch, that's still not a lot of depth. So I would think a midfielder would probably be best, but speculation.
This is one of the ongoing things that Dan and I used to talk about the last couple years. We had big rosters under Stu. You had 25, 26, 27 guys. You had guys unhappy because of a lack of playing time. You had, players looking to make moves or getting loaned out because they wanted to play. And since Neil took over, the rosters have been trimmed, and it, like, on one hand, it makes sense because, if there's guys who can play, then they should play, and if they're not going to get the chance here, then let them go somewhere where they can. At the same time, though, like, these 22, 23-man rosters, nothing keeps me up at night more than wondering, the next injury, the next person who decides to retire 3/4 of the way through the season, the next person with a ton of yellow card accumulations or getting red cards. And one of the things we talked about was wanting to have, bringing in guys to have competition, to force everyone to be as good as they can be in practice, and so that it carries over to the field. And 22, I don't know, I don't know that 22 does it in my mind. And then, he made some comments in there. I don't have the article up in front of me, but he made some comments in there about, you'd like to have, X amount more players, but it's not there in the budget for it. And I'm not trying to go running around waving cowbells about, not having the money to do it, because I think we've done very well with the guys that we've brought in. But a couple extra guys, and I know no one wants to be the bench guy. No one wants to be the 23rd guy in the roster, the 19th guy on game day. But you got to have some extra bodies in there, I think. I don't want it to come down to, well, we can always call up, a 17-year-old from from the academy side. It's cool to give him some exposure. It's cool to get him some game time to develop him that way too. I don't want that to be plan A for what do we do when everything goes wrong.
But at the same time, you also don't want to be paying people that you're not going to actually use. You don't want dead weight on a roster in general anyways.
Get more Pelican suits. There's plenty of work that can be done.
Oh, God.
I'm kidding, mostly at that point. Yeah.
By the end of the year, I'm expecting child Pelicans to be running around the stadium. I'm just saying.
Little baby
By the
Pelican.
end of the season, I'm just kind of expecting
Baby Pelicans rolling down the berm. It's going to be great.
My body is ready for this experience of seeing baby Pelicans running around the stadium. I'm ready for it. I've already grown to accept it.
Maybe if we had like little handheld containers you could put baby Pelicans in, and then you could open them up when a goal is scored, and the baby Pelicans could fly around the stadium.
God.
We could solve a couple issues here. We're going to get to that one in just a second, though. But like you mentioned earlier, and I want to just touch on it real quick. The USL Academy Cup Eastern Conference event results. Rowdies did really good. I think two teams, it was us and Charlotte, finished undefeated.
Yep.
I think we had the better goal differential. I don't know how they rank these or how they rate these things or who they decide who is what. The Rowdies went unbeaten 3-0 with wins over North Carolina FC 4-3, Chicago FC 4-0. I guess maybe did they have Jay Cutler playing for that team? Because the only way Tampa Bay team shuts out a Chicago team is Jake. Never mind. I'm just taking shots at Sudol now. And then a 6-0 win on the final day over the Boston Bolts. There will be this was the Eastern Conference event. The Western Conference was sometime last year. There's going to be a national event near the end of May combining teams from the Western and Eastern Conference, as well as some teams who didn't even compete in regional play. So we'll see who the teams to be included are. It's going to be played at the new Hillsborough County Sportsplex, so I'd say it's safe to say the Rowdies will be one of the teams involved based on their performance and their proximity. But shout out to those guys. That's a cool thing. Like to you've got some of these teams coming in from different parts of the country that they've not faced before, and to put up 3 wins and 3 results like that is pretty good. And that brings us. I'm going to let you at least start this off because a like I said, I just found out about it around 8 o'clock or 6:30, an hour and a half before we came on. But apparently,
way to miss all of social media this
right?
week.
Hey, that just means I'm doing my job.
I know.
It happens. Apparently, St. Pete don't want this smoke. Stephen, what the hell is going on?
Well, let me preface this by saying I was not in the meeting, of course. I'm not in leadership of either supporter group at all. I'm entirely podcast related at this point. So here's what I was told, and this is kind of the circumstances, what's going on. We don't know who's necessarily instigating this. That's the important thing to consider when we're looking at what's happening here. It's not the club. The club has been vehemently defending us in behind closed doors as far as that. Obviously, we haven't seen a public statement yet to this point, but behind closed doors especially, they've been very, very supportive of it. But from what we understand, and what I understand, is that there was a meeting last night, and in that meeting, a fire marshal was involved, and the impression is that the idea behind the meeting was apparently supposed to be a sit-down to discuss the issue of smoke, like it's an issue at all. It really isn't. It never has been. For 10 years, we've worked with the team very comfortably with trying to get good scenarios or whatever to make it work. We've had a healthy relationship with the club. They've been great to us. We've been good to them, making it work. Whenever they've had a safety question come up, we've always done what we can to compensate their request. And it's been a great relationship for 10 years now. It's been a great relationship. But then the meeting happened last night, and the impression basically the gist of the meeting was there was no discussion. It was basically the St. Pete Fire Marshal just coming in, sitting down and saying, you're not doing this anymore. If you do this, we're literally going to arrest people. We're literally going to shut down the stadium due to fire hazards. We're literally going to force the abandonment of games, and we don't care about your stupid little league. We're going to force everybody to leave the stadium and shut it down mid-game. If anybody, home or away, is caught lighting a smoke bomb, we're threatening to go all the way and just nuke the whole situation. And when we were like, hey, seems a little heavy-handed and kind of out of nowhere. Is there anything? No discussion. This is the law. We're doing this. Okay, but it's not state statute because all the other clubs in Florida have always done this. Oh, and here's the kicker. Here is where it becomes really important, because this is where it feels almost personal to a degree. Was when we brought up, or not we, because I wasn't there, but when the situation was brought up about, hey, there are other teams in this league, other teams in the state, more specifically, that use smoke at their games with no problem whatsoever. Essentially the response, paraphrased, was, I'm free to interpret the state statutes for fire hazards and things like that to my own degree. So basically, I'm just going to interpret this as an iron fist. And that was essentially the response that he gave the club and he gave our supporters in this meeting. Now, it's important to note out, we, as a supporter group, we did reach out to the mayor's office to go, hey, where is this coming from? Is there something we can do as an agreement? We haven't heard back yet. That's important to note. We haven't heard an official word back. Obviously, the club itself hasn't made a public statement. We know privately they're behind us. As far as defending us, they defended us in that meeting. They defended us to that fire marshal, or the fire marshal of City of St. Petersburg. They openly defended us. There was more than one person that was visibly upset about the decision-making. So that is certainly something that is encouraging. Obviously, if you are a supporter listening to this, not just necessarily in the Tampa Bay community, but in general, like, you want to know that your club is behind your supporter group. And I think that's the important thing here, is that face-to-face, unless there's like some huge schadenfreude going on, face-to-face, they're defending us. Obviously, I'd love to see some public comment, but, maybe that comes out tomorrow. This is all still relatively new, and our regular season's a few weeks away. But I think the other big thing about what happened and what is happening right now is the fact that the team is not telling the players not to tweet about it. I think that's an important thing to factor in right now, because they could very easily tell the players, hey, we don't want you saying something about a particular subject if they want to. Instead, what we've seen is several current and past players make comments or social media likes or whatever. Force Lasso and Zach Steinberger have been very vocal about this. Steinberger, like literally as we're on the show tonight, recording this and doing the live radio, has been tweeted very early during our show about how supportive he was of us and of Smoke in general at sporting events. I've seen Damian Lowe's name pop up. I've seen Jan Ekra's name pop up. We're not in this alone. And I think that's the big thing that you should take away if you're a member of Ralph's Mob or Skyway Casuals, if you are a Rowdies fan in general. Know that we're not alone in this fight, that it's not some random thing. Independent Supporters Council's behind us. They're going to do what they can to help out from their level. Like I said, we're still officially waiting for some public announcements from the Rowdies and or the league. But from what we understand, both of them have been supportive of us.
Like multiple other USL supporter groups have been tweeting support to us and also to the city of St. Pete.
Yes. Here's the big thing that I would do. And this is, I think, the important thing. It's one thing to see somebody post about it and to like and to retweet that post. Like I put out a tweet today. And funny enough, I just tagged a couple people, used a hashtag or whatever. Nothing crazy. I just posted a picture and put it up on Twitter. It's one of the most seen things I've ever put on Twitter on my own personal account. And it's great. I mean, it's fun, obviously. Everybody, it's kind of cool having your phone buzzing the entire day. But here's the important thing. And I want you to know this. If you're listening to the show, it's not about liking and retweeting or sharing on Facebook a particular post, because that's not necessarily going to get it. It's not about making one post viral. You've got to actually make a post yourself. You've actually got to tag. You have to send PMs. You have to make comments on social media posts on other pages. If you're going to bring awareness to this on a larger scale, you can't just like and retweet what somebody else is saying. You have to actually come out and say something in support of it yourself. And I think that's one thing that I want to make sure that if you're listening to the show and you're that diehard of a fan, you're probably on one of these social media outlets. That's what's going to actually cause some change, is you actually saying something yourself, not just parroting what somebody else is saying. Because, it's fun getting, 40 retweets or something like that and having your post seen by 5,000 people or something like that. It's cool, but I'm not in it for that attention. Aaron is not in it for the attention that it's bringing the Ralph's Mob Twitter account or Ralph's Mob's Facebook account. We're not doing that to raise social media clicks. We're doing it because we're trying to inspire people to start saying things themselves. And so I want to make sure that message is actually brought across, that we want you guys as supporters and fans of the team, because we're hearing from every spectrum of the fandom. Mm-hmm. It's not just supporters in our section or have, only once or twice gone to the section. We're hearing from fans all across the stadium that sit in all the sections that say, hey, we love what you're doing. We're not in favor of the city treating you guys this way because we love you and we love what you do. Again, it's cool seeing popular social media posts, but that's not the point. That's not the point. You need to actually say something yourself. Again, it's a civics lesson, right? And again, as a, social studies teacher, you would be more aware of something like this. It's a civics lesson right now, where if you want something done, you have to actually go out and say it. You can't just say, oh, I'm supportive of what you say over there. That's not necessarily going to get a result. Numbers matter. And it's not numbers of one post, it's the number of posts. And I think that's the one big thing that I would say going into the future, because again, this is going to be something that's going to drag out for, I'm sure, days to, if not weeks, especially going into the season opener. I mean, shoot, we don't even know what's going to happen this weekend. If Miami fans come in, they didn't hear about this, and all of a sudden some smoke goes off this weekend. We don't even know what's going to happen this weekend. Because hypothetically speaking, there could be as many as 3 busloads of people from Miami coming up as dedicated supporters. We don't know if any of those guys know anything about what's happened today.
We need to amend the list.
Up here in St. Pete.
Breaking news.
Oh, breaking, huh?
I mean, it's not really news, but Evan Loro has now tweeted his supporters also.
Hey, there we go. And that's the thing, like I said, this is important to know. Yes, the team itself, the club hasn't put out an official statement yet saying yes or no, but they haven't stopped the players from saying something, which is entirely in their power to do if they wanted.
Right.
So that's an important factor. If you're thinking that this is somehow something related to a club initiative, I think seeing as many players as you have, if pretty much most, if not all of them, basically to this point, that are on social media actively, they're all talking and they're all saying stuff. So I think that's important. And I think that's the kind of indication that you want when you're looking at this situation from afar. But yeah, at this point, if you want something to change, if you want this to be changed, you got to speak up. You got to say something. And you can't just share a post and call it a day.
Right.
It ain't going to work.
And just to demonstrate the effectiveness of this. Now, from what I understand, the meeting was with the board and the fire marshal, right? The mayor was not there himself.
No, mayor himself was not there.
Okay. Fire marshal said this was the mayor's wishes. He's following through on the mayor's directives. The mob posted some of their feelings on Twitter, tagged the mayor in it. The mayor responded and said, "Hey guys, shoot me an email. Here's my address." So there is some communication going on. I don't know, for all we know, it could be the mayor saying, "Yes, I told him to do it. Here's my reasons why, blah, blah, blah." Or, "Hey, let's sit down, figure this out, hammer out something that works for everybody." And look, I get it. When I first started coming to games and got into, like, this is the first team I've kind of actively supported, it wasn't a big deal to me at first. And then once the mob got the permission to do it on a regular basis, it's like, yeah, this is very cool. And I get there's people that it doesn't work for, that the smell or the smoke itself, whatever, has an effect on them. There's got to be a way we can accommodate their needs as well as this, because the reason why, and they have to. Always see stories and reports about the demographics of people who follow different sports and stuff, and soccer is one of those that obviously trends a lot younger. The reason why I, as an old guy, have gotten into this so much to like where I really don't follow other sports or leagues as much or at all. In my opinion, there's no other game where the fans have as much of an impact as it is in soccer, and you can see it from the players posting their tweets tonight. I want to dig up Steinberger's real quick. But he says he remembers when Indy 11 lost their smoke after the move to Lucas Oil Stadium in 2018. It's a massive part of fan and player experience. Like, there isn't really any other game where I feel where the team feeds as much off of the fans during the game as soccer. There's different aspects, but I think the fans have the biggest impact when it comes to soccer, and to do this limits the it's a negative to the team. You can see the players saying it, and when you've got one team where, we can talk about the ownership situation at some point too, but you've got the one team that is actively trying to stay in St. Pete, that is actively supporting and promoting St. Pete, that people come to St. Pete from around the area and from outside the area to come see the team, there's got to be some room to work here instead of just saying, here's the new rules, have a good day.
Yeah, if you're going to ban anything supporter-related, ban me from playing the drums ever again. That would at least make sense.
I'll second that. I didn't even hear it, and I don't want you off the drums.
I just, it's bewildering. I mean, the only sport that comes close to what we do is college basketball, and we, for a lot of audiences, and we kill that atmosphere a lot of times. You know?
Oh, yeah.
Like, it's way more intensive because we got the flags, we got the tifos, we've got smoke. It's fantastic. It drums and everything else. Like, that's, I think, the only atmosphere that comes close to what we do is like an American college basketball environment as far as American sports goes. And that's frequently what I use as an example when people say, well, what do you do at Rowdies games? Well, it's a lot like going to a Duke basketball game. You know, it's that's very similar to what we are like. That's kind of close to the culture. But yeah, I think the big thing right now is I would rather see, and maybe this comes tomorrow, I'd rather the actual club come out and make some sort of a statement of support.
Oh, man, your audio just cut out. Play with the cord because it was like going staticky and kind of cutting it out. I think you've got some kind of weird connection there somewhere. But yeah, what you were saying, I expect we'll hear something at some point from the team to find out, find out their position on this. It's kind of a big deal. I mean, it's one of the reasons why you've got they looked into moving the mob closer to the field is to bring that atmosphere, to bring that presence even closer to the game itself. I mean, up under the overhang is one thing, and it's worth pointing out when you're up under the overhang and popping smoke, and it gets caught under the overhang and blows through there. Then yeah, it's got a bigger potential to bug somebody. Now that we've moved, or we're going to move once the construction is done, supporters down in front, you've got a whole lot more open area for the smoke to spread through, and hopefully won't be as problematic for some of the people that it's been problematic before. Yeah, no, we're still not getting you. You knew this was coming at some point. It's something hardware on your end though, because we'll tell you about it in a little bit. So we'll wrap it up there. Send your comments, and look, this is a brand new thing. I don't know that I would call it a final set in stone thing, because it appears that at least the mayor is open to some communication about this. So, as pissed off as you might be, try and keep the messages respectful for now. When the word comes down that no, this is final, this is the way it's going to be, we don't care, then ramp it up a little bit. But for right now, let's keep things civil, but express your opinions definitely. Especially if you are a St. Petersburg resident and, more importantly, voter. Or if you're a person who travels to St. Petersburg often and spends money on things like food and gas and drinks and restaurants and things like that, how this decision may potentially impact your decisions in those areas. But we're going to go ahead and wrap it up. Steven has sent me his "We love you." It's to Aaron Retkeys for his hard work as Mob Prez and being involved in this. I'll represent for the south side of the bridge, specifically Ian Lynn, who is president of Skyway Casuals. He's also the treasurer for the Independent Supporters Council, so we have a voice well placed in position to make sure this is there's awareness on this. So shout out to him for the job he's done representing not just Sarasota supporters, but Rowdy supporters in general, at meetings, at conventions, and kind of around the area. is worth, not just because of this one issue, but this as well. Thank you to Wolfface, Radio St. Pete, and the Shamrock for all the love and support and music and platforms and beers and everything else. Thank you to you guys who have listened, are listening, will listen later. Please continue to share, subscribe, rate, and review so that this gets out in front of as many people as possible. If you'd like to support us on an ongoing basis, go to patreon.com/unusedsubspod. You have levels of support starting at $1 a month. We just had a new $1 supporter sign up this week too, so shout out to them. I'm going to post some names and stuff later, along with our new friend Mitchell last week. All the way up to $10 or more. You can pick your own. There's things out there. I'm gonna tweak one of them a little bit later tonight. I had an idea. Thank you to our sponsor, Roughneck Scarves, the official scarf supplier to MLS, USL, and US Soccer. You can get custom scarves for your group or team at roughneckscarves.com. If you get one of those kind of heavy wool ones, you can hold it in front of your face when the smoke pops off, and that way it prevents some of the issues people may have with it. If you want to put the scarf over something, you can get and you're tired of the same old uniforms and cookie cutter templates from people like Nike and Adidas, and you're looking for a unique, completely custom kit for your youth club, Sunday League squad, adult, or even pro team, Icarus FC can help you create the kit of your dreams at an affordable price. Let them help you design your new custom kit today at IcarusFC.com. Steven, I assume you're looking forward to next week's show, however much you get to actually participate in it. I swear I'm not just cutting you off near the end of every show for the heck of it, for the most part. Did you just say I'm number 2? Everyone usually tells me I'm number 1. We'll figure this out. We'll get things fixed. If not, at least we'll have more fun. And I can just make fun of Steven right now. You know, that tweet gets a lot of exposure. You just might meet a special someone. Pete found someone. So can you, Steven. It's 9:13 p.m. and Steven Cundiff is still single. We'll you're dying. You can't respond to that. We need to start letting patrons get in here and watch this with us, so that when I'm start like talking to you and you can't say anything, people can see what's going on. That might be a perk. I think we'll add that as a perk. Let some of the people watch, join a live but muted studio audience and watch this. All right. Thank you guys for listening. I cannot wait to be out at Al Lang on Saturday. By the way, if you're in Sarasota and planning on going Saturday, hit me up because I need a ride. My wife has to borrow my car to go to Tampa because her car isn't the greatest in the world. So if you've got room for a podcaster in your car, give me a shout and we'll work it out. See you guys this weekend. Talk to you guys next week. Love you guys forever. This has been the Unused Substitutes. See, now the music's not... It's the same weird thing. The music's not playing now either. This is very odd. This is very, very odd indeed. All right. I could sing. Or I could I could just say what I tell my students when they ask things like this. The judge told me I cannot sing in public again or I'll go back to jail. And then one of them goes, wait, back to jail? I say, don't worry about that part. Did I say that out loud? I didn't mean to say that out loud. All right, we'll talk to you guys next week. See you later. Go hum Kick in the Grass right now so it sounds like the end of the show. See ya.
The Rowdies were here, the Rowdies were there, they kicked the wall around. The Rowdies were here, the Rowdies